So good morning, everybody. Good evening, good afternoon, 17 November 2020. Thank you for joining us. What's new in Alma Acquisitions? We've got a lot of exciting new developments to show. We're also going to be reviewing the roadmap. We're going to be going over some surveys that we recently did. And we're fortunate enough to have with us today Mr. Noam Fass, joining us all the way from Beit HaKerem, Jerusalem. Thank you, Noam, for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us.
Thanks for having me.
Without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing and I'll turn this right over to you, Noam. So I'm right-clicking, change role. You are the presenter. Take it away, Noam. And if anyone wants to send in a chat, one moment, Noam. Anyone wants to send in a question via the chat or the Q&A, go ahead. I will be monitoring it. I'll let Noam know at periodical times. And we will not mention your name if you send in a question. So no need to fear that everyone will know what you sent. Go ahead, Noam.
Thank you, Yoel. Thank you, everyone. Yoel, just let me know whether you can hear me okay and see my screen.
I hear you fine, and I see your screen.
Perfect. So if you have any issues with my communication, let me know. I'll turn off my video. Let's begin. What's new in Alma Acquisitions, November 2020. My name is Noam Fass. Today, as Yoel mentioned, we're going to go over three main topics. First one is the survey summary. In the past few weeks, we had two surveys in the acquisition area. The first one was around PO line management. The second one was around Sushi experience. The next thing that we do around this webinar is talk about what's new. It was hard to choose new developments because there are so many in the past year, but I chose three main developments, and I did an extra slide. I added an extra slide in order to show you additional developments, just to know, so you can pay attention when you work on Alma, understand the new things that are available for you. And I hope time will suffice, and we will make it to the last part of this webinar, which is what new, just a sneak peek about our upcoming developments around 2021. So without any further ado, let's get started about the survey summary. Let's start with the PO line management. We had almost 175 users who responded to the survey. So first of all, thank you everyone for taking the time to answer the survey. I know it was a bit long. The reason that we did the survey is, first of all, to listen to our community, of course, but we do plan in 2021, and this is like a sneak preview of the last section, we do plan to enhance the searching functionality and the main presentation functionality of the purchase order lines in Alma. So we wanted to know a few things that will help us work on these improvements, and this is why we've asked you these questions. The first question that I chose to show you here is regarding the advanced search or the existing advanced search options when you're searching for PO line. And what we've seen is, of course, that 80% are okay with the existing search indexes. But what we did see is that almost 20% are stating, no, this is not enough for us. We'll need to enhance it. So 80% is great, but we do want to listen to our community and answer its needs. So of course, we gave them the option, or users the option, to write a comment. We got a lot of comments, and we have lots of good information to base our new design when we'll go forward. Next question was about the search results. When you get a search result, you get the purchase order line information. We wanted to understand whether this information is enough for you as users to understand what you need regarding the purchase order line. So 62% stated that it's enough, but almost 40% stated that it can be enhanced and can be improved. 63 comments about this. Of course, each comment will be reviewed, and once we'll go ahead and work on the design for the next phase of the purchase order line, this will be taken into account. Last question about the purchase order line specifically was the new feature that we've added in order to enable users that enter to a purchase order line in view mode to just simply click on the edit button and simply click on the edit button and simply edit the purchase order line. If you remember, up until not so long ago, once you go to a purchase order line in view mode, in order to edit it, you will need to copy the purchase order line, paste it in the search bar, find the search result, go to task list, and then click edit. Very cumbersome process. Now I'm happy to say that this simple edit button, which looks simple, is available for you. The reason that I'm saying that it looks simple because the development behind it was not that fairly straightforward. We needed to take into account the user's privileges in order to see whether they can edit the purchase order line. We needed to see whether the purchase order line is not assigned to another person, or the library can be something that is associated with the user's role. So it's a simple addition for you as a user. Enjoy it, use it. We've seen in the survey that 30% of you are not aware that this addition exists. So please take into consideration and try to help yourself while working on purchase order lines in Alma. Okay, another question about purchase order line is the recent entities. Recent entities is a panel in Alma, which is essentially here to help you if you are working on a purchase order line and you clicked save. And then you went and you got to another entity in Alma, portfolio, invoice, whatever you did. And then somehow, somewhere, you need to go back to the purchase order line. Instead of copying the number, putting it on a note aside, you have the recent entities panel. This panel can be accessed by the icon on the top right corner of your Alma. And then you can filter by purchase order lines or whatever entity you want to use. And then you can find the purchase order line you were using. The reason that I chose to show it in this presentation is because 60% of you stated that they are not using it. Let's just say that half of these 60% are not using it, but are aware of it. My assumption is that others are not. So I just wanted to state it exists, use it. And in the next survey next year, I'll ask you again about this just to make sure that all is working as expected. Just transparency questions that I wanted to pass to you because our community needs to know what is going on. What's your satisfaction about PO line creation and management? We had 22% stating that it can be improved, less than good. So I think 80% is a good number, but we do have place to improve. Of course, there were comments here. We'll go over it and we'll improve when we will go and enhance the purchase order line screen. Next two questions were about Ex Libris support and Ex Libris documentation. We did notice that there are 30% of you who believe that Ex Libris support can be improved. This was passed, of course, to the relevant managers. And regarding the documentation, our steps going forward is for each new development. I'm going letter by letter on the documentation of the new enhancement, just to make sure it's well explained. And I have a task for myself to review the entire documentation of acquisition and try to see whether things can be improved. Of course, there are the comments which will help me and help us improve the entire documentation support workflow. So this is the purchase order line. 2 slides about Sushi. Sushi, to those of you who are not aware, is Alma's ability to go to the vendor's website, retrieve usage data around electronic usage, and then reflect it to you either in Alma or in Alma Analytics. What we've seen is that 70% of you are aware and utilizing the Sushi process. That's great. There is a job in your institution which runs automatically, retrieves the information from the vendor website and presents it in Alma and Alma Analytics. This is great. What we did see also is that 30% of you are not utilizing the Sushi. To me, it's a mystery because it's like a free thing that you can do. You can understand the cost per use for all the electronic resources. I do want to encourage you, in case you do not have a Sushi configured for each vendor of your that you work with in your institution, try to utilize the Sushi. Go one vendor at a time. Just do it. You'll see that it's a fairly simple process to configure. You need to contact the vendor, get your credentials, put it in Alma, and from there everything is pretty much automatically. What we've also seen is that those of you who are configuring Sushi does not have a Sushi account configured for each vendor who provides electronic inventory or electronic usage. I encourage you to do so. 40% of you stated that you want, you don't have the manpower, you don't have the time to do so. I recommend take the time, make the Sushi process available in your institution. I promise you, you will gain. You will have cost per use in analytics. You will understand the use for the resources that you are paying good money for. Surveys are behind us. Next thing that I want to show you is real-time ordering workflow. What is new? So in the past year, we've made huge development around the API process of creating orders in Alma. So currently in Alma, we have, 3 main processes of creating an order. EOD, embedded order data, is the first way to create an order in Alma. This is a file which is sent from the vendor into Alma. Second thing, there is an option to create orders via API. 2 main vendors who do so are Oasis and Gobi. Both Oasis and Gobi are relevant for the next thing I want to show you. And the third option is for a manual creation of purchase order line. In this presentation, I want to take the time to show you the enhancement we did around orders which are generated from Oasis or from Gobi, meaning that if I am in Oasis and I'm selecting a certain resource, and then I want to create order from Oasis, what I want to show you is what happens in Alma and how automatic the entire process is. So essentially, once you click the order in Oasis or Gobi, the process knows to take the relevant portfolio from the community zone, place it within the relevant collection in your institution, and associate the purchase order line to it. This is not that straightforward as it sounds. We did a lot of developments. We fine-tuned it in order to work as expected. And I'm going to show you a quick diagram and then a scary chart, and then I'm going to show you a live demo on how things actually work in the system. So as I stated, external LSP, either Oasis or Gobi, is sending an order. Alma has an activated collection from the community zone, which has, let's just say, 10 portfolios within it. And now we need to add additional portfolio. So Alma goes, and once the order is coming into Alma, first of all, we look to see whether the resource, the portfolio, already exists in Alma. If it's not part of the 10 portfolios that we have, we'll go to the community zone, we'll try to find it there, we'll fetch the portfolio from the community zone and activate it within Alma, within the relevant collection. So we'll have 11 portfolios, and the order line will be associated to this portfolio. This is something that is not that straightforward, because up until not so long ago, an order was created with additional resource outside the collection. And we've heard from our users that we have a portfolio outside the collection. We can activate the additional portfolio from the community zone within the collection, and then we'll have duplicate. So what you needed to do is to detach the order and connect it to the relevant portfolio, and then erase the portfolio which was created around the order. You do not need to do it anymore. I'll show you a scary chart. Feel free to ignore it. I just want to show you, this is, once you click order in Oasis or in Gobi, this is what is sent back to Alma. 4 main things that I want to show you is the identifiers which are sent. This helps us identify the portfolio and find it in the relevant community zone collection. And access model is something that we've added. How many concurrent users can access this resource? Gobi and Oasis knows to send it now via API. So this will be reflected in Alma. I will show it. And additionally, Oasis and Gobi are sending us the access provider codes, which help us locate the relevant collection to find the portfolio within it. Feel free to forget it and ignore it. I want to show you 2 use cases now live. The first use case is that, let's do it live. Let's go to my browser. I am now in Alma. And I'll open the cheat sheet I have so I know what to do. Okay, so let's see. I would like to, let's envision that I am in Oasis and I'm trying to purchase this electronic portfolio. This is the ISBN, of course, of the electronic portfolio. What I see is that it's not part of my institution. I do not have it. Let me go to the community zone and try to find it. So essentially what I want to show you now is that this resource exists within eBook Central, Perpetual, and DDA collection. And not only this, I see that this resource is, this collection, sorry, is activated in my institution. This is a very important piece of information. In order for you to enjoy the workflow that I'm presenting now, the relevant collection will need to be activated in your institution. In order to understand which collections you can activate, you can go to Alma's online help, type real-time ordering, and then you'll find the collections which are associated with Oasis, collections which are associated with Gobi, and then you just simply need to go to the community zone, activate these collections. Each order that you'll do either from Oasis or from Gobi will be placed within these collections once you'd activate it. So let's go back to Alma and see what we need to do. In order for me to illustrate it, I will open now, let's envision that this is Oasis. I know that it's a bit, code heavy, but I just want to show you that when I send an order, and I'll do it now, I'll send an order for this, Control V, for this ISBN. You can notice that the title, the author, and the publisher are just test things that I wrote down here. It doesn't make any difference, because what Alma will do now is get in the order from Oasis. Alma will go and try to see whether this resource already exists in the institution. If it doesn't exist in the institution, Alma will go to the community zone and try to find it there. Once it will find the resource in the community zone, it will bring it into Alma, associate the order line to it, and put down the relevant access model. Let's, for the fun of it, change this to 3 users. 3 concurrent users will be able to access this resource. Let me go ahead and send this order from either Oasis or Gobi. I click send. Again, I did not have access to Oasis or Gobi, so this is just to illustrate when the order is sent. It takes some seconds until the order is processed. Again, it goes into Alma. It tries to find whether the resource exists. If it exists, it will associate the order to it. But if it doesn't exist, it will create. I see that the process was finalized, and I see that the purchase order line was created. I'm not going to copy it, but I'm going to access it via a different way. I will search again for the portfolio in my institution. And I see that it was found. Perfect. What I also see is that it was placed under the relevant collection. Good. No duplicate portfolio. Alma automatically knows to place the portfolio within the collection. What I also see is that the purchase order line was associated with the portfolio. Let's access the purchase order line for a second just to review it. Oh, and I think it's a good time to show you the edit button. I think it will enter in view mode. Let's go and enter in view mode. Good. So, sorry about this, oopsie. I see that the access model is 3 concurrent users. This is something that we've added recently. It's important to reflect to the on the order which type of access model it has. So we've added this field here in order for you to understand. We see that the vendor is ProQuest. I did not add any funding or pricing information. This is, I assume, this is why the order is in review. But I just wanted you to see that the order was created in Alma. Now let's go ahead and search again for the electronic portfolio just to see how the order was reflected in the portfolio. Give me 1 second. Okay, electronic portfolio. I'm going to search for the ISBN again. Oh, great. So let me edit the portfolio. Looking at this icon, I see that as a seamless experience, I see that the resource is not available, meaning that Alma did amazing. Alma found the resource, Alma brought it into the collection. Alma also knew to associate the order to this portfolio. The one thing that Alma did not do to finalize the entire workflow is to make this portfolio available in the discovery system. Keep it in mind. I'll explain about the new enhancement we have in January in a second. So what we see is that the portfolio is not available. In order to make it available in the discovery system, you'll just need to either go to electronic activation task list or do available from here. The second thing that I want to show you is the acquisitions tab. We see that the purchase order line is associated with the portfolio, and we see that the access model is also presented not only on the purchase order line, but on the portfolio. And the portfolio presentation is a bit more elaborate. Please note that the platform supports 3 concurrent users. The reason that we did this longer sentence more explanatory is because you have a configuration within Alma configuration, fulfillment, interface, display. You can choose whether or not to display this to your patrons in your discovery system. If for some reasons you would like patrons to understand that the concurrent access can only be granted to 3 users simultaneously, you can reflect it to the users. Of course, this text is customizable. There is a configuration table within Alma configuration screen. You know what? Let's go ahead and see it.
Excuse me, you may have just answered this question, but a question came in. I'm gonna read it to you. What would happen with access model availability display where multiple copies are owned, for example, 3 times 1 user?
So that's a good question. This is a model which I'm going to talk during the next part of the presentation, but that's a good question. So in the purchase order line, we have a quantity for pricing and we have the access model. If I understand the question correctly, the quantity for pricing now will be 3 and the access model will be 1U. This is how you can reflect that you purchased 3 times the portfolio, I would say, and each one of these purchases reflects the 1 user. So you can see it on the purchase order line when the order will come in, you will see this indication. For the patrons, if they go to the discovery system, they will only see the 1U presentation. So this is because this is something that is reflected on the portfolio. Let me go ahead and show you the access model configuration. Okay, so the access model configuration, I'm not going to show you how to do it, but it's fairly simple. You have the internal access model. This is the code, the descriptions which appear on the purchase order line. And below this, you have the public access model, which are the descriptions that come on that presented on the portfolio. These can be customized. These can be added if you have new codes. If you're working with vendors that had new codes, you can add codes and descriptions to this configuration. We are working closely with Oasis and Gobi. Each time that they are enhancing their codes, we will get a notice and we will add it automatically. The second thing that I wanted to show you, let's go to the fulfillment. We'll go to discovery interface. I think it's under other settings. Sorry, I did not plan to show it, but it's fairly simple. And enable display of access model. If this is checked, the access model on the portfolio will be reflected on the purchase order line. So what we've seen now, and I'm going to go back to the presentation, we've seen the first thing that I want you to see. We've seen that the user is purchasing from Oasis or Gobi. What happens, how everything happens automatically. I'm going to jump into the second scenario, and this is once UL will publish the presentation, you will have a step-by-step explanation regarding what we've just seen. The second thing that I want to show you is a DDA example. Let's just say that a portfolio exists in your institution as part of a DDA program. So let me go back to Alma and go back to the main screen. And I'm going to look at my cheat sheet in order to copy the ISBN for the existing portfolio. And I'm going to search for it. Control V, enter. So what I see now is that I have this portfolio in my institution. I see that it was activated from the community zone, and I see that it's blue, meaning that it is available. That's great. Users in the discovery system can now find this resource. What I don't see here is that I have an order for this resource. So my assumption, or the workflow that I want to show you, is that this portfolio is part of a DDA program. What I want to show you now is what happens when a user or a patron clicks the resource in the discovery system and automatically triggers a purchase from eBook Central into Alma. Why is this happening? Because the DDA program decides that when you have one click, an order is automatically sent and the resource is yours. So let's illustrate it for a second. Let's go to my dummy Oasis and paste the ISBN right over here. What I also want to do is change the access model to one user just to see that it's reflected on the order. And I'm going to click send. Now, when I'm clicking send, I'm illustrating that you are in Oasis or in Gobi, and you are clicking order this resource. Again, what it does, it goes to Alma. It tries to find out whether the resource exists or not. If not, it goes to the community zone, which is the previous workflow we've seen. And if it exists, which is what we're seeing now, what I expect to happen is that a purchase order line will be associated to the existing portfolio. Again, this is not that straightforward. Up until not so long ago, what would have happened is that the existing portfolio would be under the relevant collection. And once an order was created from Oasis and Gobi, another portfolio was created outside the collection with the order associated to it, causing the institution manual labor of detaching the order, associating it with the existing portfolio, and deleting the new portfolio which was created. So let's go back to my portfolio. I'm going to search for it again. My expectation is that I'll see the same. I'll see that I have portfolio. I see that it's available in the discovery system. What I also see now is that an order was created. Perfect. Let's see that the, I will not go into the order because we've seen it before, but I want you to see what happens when I edit the portfolio just to see the acquisition. First of all, it's available because it was available. The only thing that was added here is a purchase order line, and my assumption is that the access model, please note the platform supports only one concurrent user. Perfect. So now we've seen the workflow that illustrates a DDA. Now the portfolio is not part of a DDA pool, but it's owned. It's your portfolio. You have an order associated to it. It's still discoverable in the discovery system. but now it's yours and it's owned, and Alma knew to associate the entire process to the existing portfolio. Last thing I want to explain about this is the availability. What we did in, I think it was August release, we did this entire workflow streamlined. Not only that it created the order on the portfolio, it also made the portfolio available in the discovery system. Some users stated that this workflow is amazing. I don't have to do anything. I just click order from Oasis or Gobi. Done deal, everything is there. Other users told us that it's not good because it's great that it's doing everything automatically, but the resource is not yet available in the vendor system, meaning that Oasis did not yet, trigger the resource in their system. So when you make it available in the discovery system and a patron clicks on the URL, unfortunately, it leads them to a dead link because the vendor did not yet provide access. So what we did in September release, we changed the functionality, and now the order is created, but the resource is not available. In January release, we will provide institutions the option to determine whether they want these type of orders to become available instantaneously or just keep the existing functionality of not available. Let me go to the task list, let me test the connection, let me see that everything works as expected, and then this portfolio will be available. So in January release, I believe that the workflow will be streamlined. Yoel, I feel you have a question.
Yes, you saw me unmute myself, so you thought I have a question. Okay, so somebody asked, why would we see null in the portfolio?
Can you ask it again? Why do I see?
Null, N-U-L-L, in the
Null.
portfolio.
So null usually is something that we're not supposed to see. I'm not sure that I'm seeing it, but essentially null is something that you're not supposed to see.
The person who asked it, if you could give a little background to the question, perhaps it would aid us in answering.
So null is like a default value for an empty parameter, I would say. Not something I assume you're supposed to see. Thanks, Yoel. One final thing that I want to emphasize here are the benefits of working with a community zone. If you would
one moment, no, I'm sorry. The person is expanding upon that. When the POL access is blank.
The access model, I assume. So not all vendors know to pass the access model in the order as part of the order. But then it will be blank. Maybe the code which was sent. Okay, I think I understand the question. Maybe the code that was sent via API. Let me go back to the presentation. I'll quickly go up. The code that was sent from the vendor for this code, the access model code, is not part of the configuration that I've showed you. If it's not there, maybe you'll have a null because it doesn't exist in the list. My assumption is that if you look at the code that you're getting from the vendor and you will see that it's not part of the table, you can just configure the table, add the code, and it will be part of the purchase order line. I hope I answered the question. Feel free to email me if you feel that you need some more explanation about this. Another thing that I want to explain before I pass on to the next development is to tell you the advantages of working with the community zone. If you're working with community zone, you essentially do not have to enter any URL parameters. Everything is there. So Alma, when it goes to the community zone, everything is coming from the community zone into Alma. If you would not work with the community zone, you will need to enter the URL, you will need to test the connection, make sure everything is working as expected. So in our case, no, everything from the community zone should be working as expected. The entire connectivity should work as expected, providing that the vendor, of course, had the resource available for your institution. Okay, so this is the next DDA workflow. Once you all will publish the presentation, I will, you can review this. So the next thing that I want to show you, and to save time, I will not show it live, I'll just go over the slides, is change vendor in order. This functionality exists in Alma for a long time. In December release, I think it's in a week or so in your sandbox, you will see that this functionality was enhanced. Current functionality allows you to choose a PO from a certain vendor and pass the entire PO with all of its purchase order lines to a new vendor. Existing functionality, what it does is change the name of the vendor within the order. The status of the order is not changing. The purchase order is staying the same, but only the name is modified. What we did is we tried to answer two new use cases that we've heard from our community. First use case is that there is a tender. I have a vendor that I'm working with. I'm pleased with this vendor, but I'm making a tender. I would like to see whether another vendor will give me a more decent price, I would say. So what I want to do is I want to check the tender. I know that vendor B now wants the tender. So I need to pass all the orders from vendor A to vendor B. I can do it either for a specific purchase order, or I can just move the entire content of orders from vendor A to vendor B and send it to vendor B. This is something new. In the new functionality, we'll be able to send it. The second use case that we've heard is insolvency. A vendor cannot provide anymore the resources, and we'll need to pass all the orders that the vendor usually supply to us to a new vendor. Now, this is something that we made a separation between one-time ordering and continuous ordering. And of course, we took into consideration the status of the purchase order line. So if an order is closed or an order is waiting for an invoice, it doesn't make much sense to send it to the new vendor, because the assumption is that the item did arrive to the institution and now it's just waiting for an invoice to come. So we did try to see the purchase order line state in order to understand whether we want to move it to pass it and send it to the new vendor or not. To be more explanatory, I would say, I took a screenshot of the new screen that you'll see in your sandbox in a week or in December release. And I explained about the three existing fields that currently exist: the source vendor, the target vendor. And if I don't want to pass the entire content of the order from the source vendor, I can choose a specific purchase order and it will automatically populate the source vendor. And then choose the target vendor I would like to move the orders to. In order to maintain the existing functionality, because this is something that we know users want us to do, keep the existing functionality, let me do what I normally did, but enhance it. So we kept the existing functionality of not sending the order, just simply changing the name of the vendor. But what we did is added another radio button, which is sent. Now, when the user will choose to the sent option, when they choose the source and target vendor, the user will need to decide what they want to do with one-time orders that are associated to the vendor and with continuous order. One-time orders meaning orders that are sent in status sent, and continuous orders are orders that are in status waiting for renewal or waiting for manual renewal. These three statuses are essentially statuses that stated that the resource did not yet arrive from the vendor, so there is a need to pass the order and send it to the new vendor. What we also added is an option to send a cancellation letter to the source vendor. So let's just say vendor A lost the tender and we want to send them cancellation for each order line that we canceled. So each order line that was moved from the source vendor to the target vendor can be sent a cancellation letter to the original vendor who provided the resource before the tender process. So when the user chose manual or automatic handling, it will affect the purchase order line. If I choose manual handling, the purchase order line will be removed from the existing PO of vendor A and will be in review, and vendor B will be associated to it. The purchase order line will remain within the entire definitions, the fund, the price. Of course, the vendor will be modified, but everything else will remain. Simply the vendor will change. This is in the case where you do not want to send the order. But if you do want to send the order, you have an option to decide, again, if you want to send a cancellation letter, but Alma will do the workflow, will detach the order from the previous vendor and will try to pass it in the workflow and send it to be auto packaging. And of course, when the packaging job will run, Alma will send it to the new vendor. In the process, Alma, of course, checks to see whether the fund is still relevant, whether there's still sufficient fund in the sufficient available funding within the fund so that the purchase order line can be processed. It also checks to see that the currency, for example, is something that the new vendor does support. It makes the test in order to see whether the order can be sent. In case that it's not, there's no ability to send it, Alma will keep the purchase order line in review, and of course add an assertion, an alert to indicate that this stopped in review during the process. Let's see what happens. Let's just say that I ran the job, I passed the purchase order line from one vendor to another. When I'm looking at the job report, I see that the purchase order line which was handled with one purchase order line, and a PO was deleted. So what we understand from this is that there was a PO with a single purchase order line under this PO. Since we removed the purchase order line from the PO, essentially we do not need this PO. Of course, the history will be maintained on the purchase order line. I'll show it in a second. So you'll have a track of what happened, but the PO will be deleted. In case the PO contains one purchase order line for a resource which was not yet received, meaning it's in status sent, and another purchase order line which is in status closed or waiting for invoice, the PO will not be deleted, it will remain. If the purchase order line is in status closed, the PO will be closed. If the purchase order line is in status waiting for invoice, the PO will remain until the invoice will arrive. What I just want to pass out here is that the PO is sensitive to its content, whether it will be deleted or not. What you see now is the history of the purchase order line, which was passed to the new vendor. We see that the vendor code was changed, the vendor account was changed. This is the previous vendor, this is the new vendor. We see that the status of the purchase order line, in our example, the user chose to keep the order in review. And let me tell you a bit about why we wanted to provide you the option to, keep the order in review and not immediately send it to the vendor. Of course, it's up to you. So we see here that it was waiting for renewal, meaning that it was a continuous order. Several items had arrived, but now I stopped the order with the source vendor and I'm sending the new order to the target vendor. Before I'll send it to the target vendor, I want to review the order. This is a continuous order. This is money. This is each month of subscription. I want to make sure that everything is aligned before I'm sending it to the new vendor. So now it is in review. When I'll go to the purchase order line, before I click Save and Continue and process it in the workflow, let me just look at the time. Okay. When I'll process it in the workflow, before I'll do so, because it's a continuous order, Alma is smart enough to place within the node to vendor information about the last received item. In our example, we see that the existing purchase order line was for 2 holdings, meaning that there were 2 holdings. So for each holding, you will see the last received item. You will see the description and the receiving date. Why did we do it? We wanted to help users, with a streamlined workflow, overview the price, and click Save and Continue to send it to the vendor. Otherwise, there was a need for the user to indicate to the new vendor which issue they will need to start the subscription from. If this information was not here and the order was sent, it could have resulted that the vendor would sell me the National Geographic for the entire 2020 duration. I do not need it. I got it from the source vendor. I got it up until November. What I want the target vendor to see is the last received item, so the vendor will know I'll need the new edition from this date going forward. Let's see what else I have here. This is additional explanation about what will happen for automatically send orders. This is for one time and for continuous. Again, when Yoel will publish this presentation, you can read it furthermore and understand. Of course, the release note in December will have a long description of step-by-step workflow on how to do it and what are the use cases where purchase order line will be passed to the vendor, cancellation note, and all the rest. Yoel, before I finish explaining about this development, any questions about this?
Let me see if anything else came in. As a matter of fact, there is.
Okay.
Will marking e-activation tasks done in bulk be valuable in the future?
So my assumption is that you are relating to the previous things that I explained. I know that the electronic activation task list has a 2021 plan to be enhanced, and one of the operations is indeed to have bulk operations of done. And I understand the need here because you are ordering multiple portfolios, and you have to go one by one and click done. I know it will be an improvement. We know that this is something that you need. Currently, it's not supported. It's on our roadmap, definitely, yes.
Okay, and there's another one here, Noam. Is there a license associated with, if there is a license associated with the order, will this move with the POL or detach?
All the information from the POL will move to the new order, meaning that the only thing that will happen is that, of course, the vendor name will change and the order will be sent. Our intention
sorry
is to
about
keep
that.
it. Go ahead. Anything
Okay,
else?
one more. And I'm going to read it a little slowly because it came in and then there was a correction after. Is that new January release option customizable in any way, or can you only make all of them active or all of them inactive? i.e., could you make certain vendors active and others inactive when they come in via an API?
So that is a good question. Just to make sure that I understand, I'll repeat it. You're asking whether in January, when we'll add the option for institution to choose whether the resource will be available instantaneously or not available, you're asking, can I choose which vendor I want this functionality to work with? So no, the answer is no. This is a bulk operation. If you choose to do it, it will apply for the entire vendors who are sending you orders via API. Again, this is something that we are making for January. It is on our roadmap to have what we call real-time availability or real-time, real-time availability, so that the vendor, once the vendor knows that the resource is available for your institution, the vendor will automatically send it into Alma, and Alma automatically will move the radio button from not available to available, or automatically click done in the electronic activation task list. So we did not want you as a user to go to each vendor and configure it, because sometimes the vendor didn't actually make the resource available. We wanted to give you the entire option to do it in bulk, but we do have plans to provide vendors the option to send Alma at the time of the availability, immediately to send Alma this notification, and Alma would automatically know to move the portfolio to be available in the discovery system. That's a good question, by the way. Thanks for asking it. Yeah, moving on. Okay. The last thing that I want to show you as a live presentation is the managing acquisition alert. I'm not going to read the quote here, but this is something that we got from our community, stating that sometimes acquisition has these pop-ups that bother me in the workflow. Sometimes I'm not even reading the pop-ups. I'm just clicking confirm or OK and continuing in my workflow, and it's bothersome. And can this be disabled? And this happens normally, or these remarks, we read it normally when we release a new enhancement, and these enhancements include new pop-up window. So what we did is we added a new configuration screen in Alma, which I'm going to show in a second. This configuration screen holds not all the alerts that are triggered for invoices and for PO lines, but the alerts that we wanted to give you the option to disable. Let's just say that there is an alert for mandatory information is missing. We don't want you to disable this, since we believe it's an informative pop-up, and we want you to know that this is something that is happening. But for other alerts, we wanted to give the institution the option to disable these alerts. So let me go back to Alma for a second. I'll go to acquisition, and I'll search for invoices in review, for example. And this also will allow me to show you some new developments that were done. I'll show invoice that is assigned to me, and I will edit it, for example. Okay, so what we will see now, once Alma will finish calculating everything, is that the invoice, first of all, has a new field owner. This is not new field, actually, but the ability to change the owner is new. Up until not so long ago, when you edit an invoice, the owner was not editable. Once an invoice was created, it was created with a specific owner and was not, and you could not change it. We heard from the community, why are you limiting us? Please give us the option to modify the owner, even if the invoice, while the invoice is being edited. So we provide you the option, but what we additionally did is, let's just say that the invoice is on an institution level. What we wanted you to know when you're saving the invoice or saving and continue, the invoice lines and the purchase order line, which are associated to the invoice lines, can be associated to a specific library. So when you click save, and I expect it to present me now a pop-up window, the pop-up window will tell me, listen, everything's okay, but the invoice is on the institution level. The invoice lines are on a library level. Are you sure you want to continue? Maybe you want to modify the owner to be on the library level to match the purchase order line and the invoice lines. So of course, we've read it in the Alma list. We've seen that this is a great new feature. How come you've added this pop-up? I'm aware of my doings. I don't want to have this pop-up bothering me in the workflow. So what I want to show you now is how I'm going to try and make this pop-up not appear for me. So let me go back to the configuration for acquisitions and show you this new link of managing acquisition alert. We've seen the screenshot in the presentation. And now I want to show you how I disable this specific alert. This is the alert. The invoice owner's institution also. Okay, so this is the alert. Now I'm going to take a few seconds so you can read all these alerts and see whether you have any alert that you keep on seeing and you do not want to see anymore. I know that reporting code is something that we've heard from our users that can be, we are aware that the reporting code is missing. We did this purchase order line. We know we do not want to place it. So you can disable it from here. For our example, I chose to disable the invoice alert we've just seen. I'm going to save it now. I'm going to go back to the invoice I just edited with your permission. And I want to do it real quick because I have a bit more to show you. I'm going to go to acquisitions, invoices in review. Perfect. I'm going to edit the invoice I just edited. Oh, I think it was this one. Just to make sure it was this one, I'm going to check whether I have the option to move it to a library level. So I do. I can either choose to have the invoice owner be the library or the institution. I'm going to keep it in the institution just to make sure that I don't get the pop-up. So what we have here is an invoice on an institution level, which holds invoice lines on a library level. Alma knows that there's a certain mismatch. Alma can alert, but what I wanted to show you now is that Alma will simply not present you the alert. So let's just see that it happens. Perfect. So what we did now is we disabled this alert. Of course, if I'm going to go back and enable it, Alma will know to present you the relevant pop-up. Now, these alerts are available for invoices and purchase order lines. In case you did not see here, or when you review it, you will not see an alert that bothers you, or you do not see any elements that you think can be added, feel free to contact me and tell me so, and we will review it. Adding an alert to this table is, I wouldn't say fairly straightforward, but it's something that we want to help our user in terms of user experience, because stopping these workflows, I know it's a bit bothersome when you're working every day on an invoice or on a purchase order lines. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. Yoel, if I have any questions, feel free to stop me. We spoke about this.
So far, we're good, Noam.
Perfect. This is the more slide. I have 12 minutes. I'm going to try to review the more slide in a few minutes. Nothing additional here. I won't show any live explanation. I just want you to see this and tell yourself, whoa, this is nice. I want to use it or not. So currency exchange rates. Currently in Alma, when you need to make an exchange from a certain currency, from one currency to another, Alma knows to retrieve the information regarding the daily currency exchange rate and do the exchange. We've heard mostly from APAC region institution that they have an agreement with their vendor on a fixed exchange rate, meaning that at the beginning of the year, they decide on a fixed exchange rate, and this is something that they want to keep throughout the year. What they did is they worked with Alma, but they did not send the orders to the vendor or to their ERP system, to their financial system, because the money or the prices needed to get modified. This is a manual workflow which took institutions multiple or many days to go over. What we did is we added a new table which allow institution to configure a fixed exchange rate between the default institution exchange rate and the currency that you would like to have the exchange. So there's a nice video that was created by the documentation team. When you have this presentation, you can access the video or simply search for the online help. To those of you who are using this functionality or using a fixed exchange rate with a vendor, do try to check it, because I think it will save you a lot of time. The next thing that I want to explain is about the access model. We did see it in the first workflow that we've seen about the ordering coming from Oasis and Gobi. Something that was added a few releases ago. I think it's important for those of you who are working with electronic resources. It's an important piece of information, both on the purchase order line, since you are purchasing and spending your money on a certain access model, either 1U, 3U, unlimited access. So this is something that should be reflected. There's a documentation page which shows you how to configure the access model, how to customize it in case you want to customize the description. So there's a nice documentation page you can look. Another thing that we spoke about is the edit option on the purchase order line. I know it seems straightforward. We saved you a lot of clicks. I can assure you, when I spoke to our users during the user studies or just normal sessions, they told me how cumbersome it is to copy the purchase order line, search for it, etc. You do not need to do it anymore. We added the edit button. The last thing that I want to explain is about the sushi harvesting job. Something that is pretty straightforward. We added 4 new scheduling. Now, the difference between these new 4 scheduling options and the existing one which we had is that these new options can run once a month, as opposed to the previous option, which is already exists today, which it ran every week. Once the sushi harvesting was running every week, it's resulted in failures in the job reports, because essentially, maybe if the report was not ready on the vendor side, Alma would tell you, listen, there's a failure because the report was not ready on the vendor side. So we added 4 predefined dates in order for you to modify. So you can change the job to run, let's just say, on the 26th of every month, where we are pretty sure that the usage information of the previous month is ready on the vendor's website. So when I'll change the job to run on the 26th, the expectation is that the job will run successfully and will retrieve the usage data information. You have lots of documentation about sushi harvesting. Since we spoke about this survey, if you feel that the documentation about sushi can be enhanced or improved, feel free to contact me directly. It's something that I want to, work on and make sure that everything is well explained. So this is the more slide about the developments which were done. Of course, there are lots of developments which were done during 2020. Let's take some time to go over what is next. During our 2021 roadmap, of course, we plan a lot of nice things. One of the things that we plan to do is to provide you the option to open a purchase order line, see the resource, and replace it in case you want to replace it. Currently, what you will need to do is to delete the purchase order line or delete the resource and open a new purchase order line for the resource. I'll explain the use case which caused us, mainly caused us to do so, but you can, you'll have the option to enjoy this even if you're not using the use case I'm just explaining. We've heard from our consortia users that one of their workflow is that a member of the consortia is creating an order for a specific collection, let's just say eBook Central, like we've seen in the initial part of this webinar. When they create an order for a specific collection, they're created for their purposes of purchasing. But due to the fact that they are consortia, they now notify the network institution that there is a need to activate the collection in the network, and then they would like to associate the order with the network collection. So what they did as a first step is to create the order in their institution just to make sure that everything works as expected, notify their network institution made the collection available for their institution, and now they have an option to go to the purchase order line, detach the resource, the collection or the portfolio from the purchase order line, and choose which new resource they would like to associate with the purchase order line. So when they'll search for the new resource, let's just say they'll search for the collection, they will find the collection that is associated to the network zone, but the purchase order line in their institution will be associated with this collection. Of course, only for their institution. It will not be associated to the collection on a network level, so that other members, if they want to activate the collection, they will not see the order from this institution. Moving on, sushi. We've heard a lot of good feedback around sushi development, which we've done in the past year. We've seen an increasing number of sushi accounts being configured. We've seen that lots and lots of Alma users are configuring sushi and enjoying the cost per use that Alma has to offer. Again, I would like to encourage you, if you did not do so, do it. It will help you. But what we also heard is that Alma currently, when I'm configuring a new sushi and I'm clicking harvest now, meaning that I would like to retrieve the entire data from the past month that I had around the usage for electronic usage from this vendor, Alma only retrieved 12 months past. What we wanted, or what we've heard from users, is that there is a need or there is a requirement that users can define which time frame they would like to harvest usage from, whether they would like to harvest 5 years in the past, or whether they would like to harvest a specific month in order to retrieve the usage data. So this is something that we've heard from multiple users. There's also an idea exchange about this. We plan to edit during 2021 to answer the community's need. Something about quantity for pricing, which I explained a bit regarding the question that was asked. We wanted to support the two, I would say, potential acquisition models. The first model is that the vendor only supports access model for one user, one concurrent user. So what you will need to do is to indicate, I want the quantity for pricing to be 3 and the access model to be 1 user. So I'll have 3 copies and each copy will grant me 1 user access. This is something that the vendor decides. The vendor only supports 1 user, for example. So the purchase method for you to grant access to 3 users will need to be quantity for pricing 3, access model 1 user. Another scenario is that the vendor does support 3 users, 3 concurrent users. So the access model will be 3 users, but the quantity for pricing will be 1. Currently, this information is not passed as part of an EDI, which is sent to the vendor. Our intention is to support these two, I would say, models in order to pass the vendor the required information. Of course, once this will be released, only thing you will need to do is to indicate to the vendor, please notice the next orders that will come from now on will indicate the information. Yoel, I know I have 3 minutes. Thank you. Let's see what else we have for 2021. Receiving Workbench. I think this is the last slide, and I think it's a good time because I have like a small screenshot. In addition to the purchase order line enhancement that we plan to do during 2021, we do plan to start working on the Receiving Workbench to enhance it. Short example, small example, search before you work. When we did user studies, when we spoke to users that work with the Receiving Workbench, their #1 complaint, whether they love the Receiving Workbench, whether they think it can be improved, their #1 complaint is how come I see the full list of purchase order line when I'm accessing the Receiving Workbench? There's no situation when I'm browsing and searching for my purchase order line. I'm either searching for a purchase order line, I'm either searching for an invoice or a title. I'm not browsing through the entire list of purchase order lines. So how come I need to see the list? And for institutions that had lots and lots of purchase order line, the loading time of the screen is currently substantial. So in the new design, this is like a very, very simple screenshot. In the new design, we do not plan to show the full list up front. Of course, users will have the option to click and view the entire list, but we do plan to just, minimize the screen just to have it load once you click, and then you search and find what you need. A bit about the presentation. Once you found what you need, you have the purchase order line on the left-hand side. If you search for an invoice, you can have multiple purchase order lines. So you can go one by one. And you have the item inventory. This is more relevant for continuous order, but you have the inventory items available for you on the right-hand side. So you will not have to find the purchase order line, click on the manage items, find the purchase order line that you need, and then receive it. You have everything side by side, so everything is presented to you once you search for a purchase order line. Yoel, I'm passing the one back to you with your permission. This is everything that I had to present today. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thanks a lot, Noam. That's a lot of really exciting stuff coming up. Thanks for sharing it with us. So everyone, thanks for joining us. We're going to be posting the video as we always do, and we'll be posting the presentation that Noam used. And keep up to date with us on what's going on, and we hope to see you on our next sessions. Have a nice day, everybody.
Thank you.